Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. It is a Monday following the weekend where the Yankees played the Red Sox and the Yankees officially dodged a bullet. Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. There it is.
Second too late.
I was having visions, Russ, of 1978 in reverse if the Yankees had lost all 4 games to the Red Sox because they were about 12 games ahead at this point. And then the Yankees made the comeback in 78, and the Yankees had lost the first 3 at Fenway. But then, they showed up yesterday, and I think, basically put a cannonball in the momentum of the Red Sox. So now we look forward to the July 31st trade deadline, and the New York Mets got ahead of that with a trade for Marcus Stroman.
Yeah, it's an interesting trade. When I saw that this was going down yesterday, I thought for sure this was going to be like a 3-way deal and the Padres would be involved and Syndergaard would be involved. And no, it turns out it's just the Mets and the Blue Jays, but the Mets traded their 2 top pitching prospects. Now, I don't know anything about the other prospect, but Anthony Kay I've been tracking for a while. And it's interesting because I really don't know if he's going to be a starter or a reliever. I believe he's been a reliever lately. Got a great arm. He's got the look. He's got the goggle. He probably could have been up this year and pitching in the Mets bullpen, but they were too cheap, so they didn't do it. They didn't want to start the clock on his, MLB career.
And the Blue Jays will be the same way.
Yeah, and they did that with Peter Alonso, and now look at Peter Alonso, right? Like they didn't do that last year with him. So the only thing I can make of this are 2 things. The first one is, even though they're 6 games back, they're 5 behind the Phillies. They play the Phillies, Nationals, and Braves a lot. And so they play probably at least 8 games each. Mm-hmm. And while there's a high likelihood that in 3 days at the deadline they'll trade Syndergaard, I now think there's a 10% chance they're going to leave the rotation the way it is and see if they can make up ground in the wild card and possibly make it. Now, that's a long shot, but with those starters, you never know. I still think the more likely thing is they trade Syndergaard to the Padres for a couple of their prospects and maybe even throw in Wilson Ramos in the deal, Mike, if they include Ruiz, who's the catcher. I don't know.
Well, just question here. Listening to WFAN on the way back to set up the show, they were saying essentially if they don't get a everyday major leaguer in this deal for Syndergaard with San Diego, like a Renfroe or a Urias or somebody of that nature, that Brodie Van Wagenen is getting taken to the cleaners. What do you think?
Well, I don't think that that's necessarily true, but I will tell you, whatever deal they make right now, and I do think it's more than Syndergaard. Like yesterday was funny, right? I guessed right that Anthony Kay was in the deal, and there was, I guess, a little point where Anthony Kay wasn't contacted, right? Mm-hmm. But what the proper reporters, they have to hold by what they do, right? I don't, and I know the New York Mets, so I knew Anthony Kay had to be in the deal if they didn't contact them, because that's what they do. They never do it the right way. Well, so I knew that happened. As far as this deal goes, I think it's going to be Syndergaard and Diaz. I think it's going to be both of them in the deal because I think Lugo is going to end up being their closer. And then I do think they'll get an everyday player and prospects. I think that's the way they're going to do it.
Now, this crosses all sports bounds, so I love, and I could be wrong here, but just interpreting what was reported yesterday after the trade was done, and you get the positive PR spin, the appreciative tweets from the players after they're traded, and then you get maybe the real thing. The real thing apparently was when the trade was announced, someone in the Blue Jays locker room was throwing a rather vociferous hissy fit. Mm-hmm. That probably was Stroman. Okay. It would make sense because nobody else was traded. He comes out, I love Toronto. I love my time here. He does the John Tavares and posts a picture of him wearing a Mets like a Mets bomber jacket or something. I mean,
circumstantial evidence, counselor.
Okay.
His name is John Tavares. Growing up with his Leafs garb on.
Or maybe somebody stole the bag. Somebody stole a bag of sunflower seeds, and they got picked off about it.
Yeah.
Let's create a narrative.
I'm pissed off here because somebody took my ranch flavored sunflower seeds, and I only eat those.
You know what's funny?
You.
Can I tell everybody what's funny?
Yeah.
This is what's funny. I was just playing a little bit of Imagine for you on the piano.
Oh, that's what that was.
That was Russ's phone ringing.
Very good. I like that.
No, that's my phone. That's my piano. No, what's funny is when I don't do the show, you guys are amazing. You guys have done so many shows, and it's incredible. I just read the comments sometimes, and I hear these things like in the comments. I'll hear like strange things about snack foods, just like out of nowhere. Like I'm like, okay, what the hell were they talking about today?
Right.
I just get that part, like
I'll just
because it gets automatically like sent to my phone as a notification,
Oh,
So
I see.
So I'll just be like, I hate Doritos. That'll just show up as a notification on my phone.
I'll take this tangent because as I drove to my friends in New York last weekend and came back, I'm in a lot of convenience stores on the way and on the way back. I've never seen more different flavors of sunflower seeds in my life than I have now. It's gotten to the point where it used to be regular sunflower seeds, and then maybe they'd have one different flavor. Now it's
stop doing the show at lunchtime, I think is the problem.
Ranch, barbecue, dill pickle, now Old Bay flavored sunflower. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I'm gonna.
How about the Old Bay flavor?
I liked it. Yeah,
I no. And the funny thing here's the thing about sunflower seeds, though, that I think, at least, I'll throw my 2 cents out. They're really good to eat until they're not. Like, what I mean? Like,
useless. Then you have to have a.
No, but you can eat, like, they're a good thing to eat if you're trying to stay awake on a long drive. I've done that, but they become incredibly awful all of a sudden. Like, you're eating like 100 of them for an hour.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're eating like 100 for an hour, and you're like, oh god, these are terrible.
And every once in a while, you get like a real bitter one, like one that was like ripened or something like that, and all of a sudden your stomach turns, and you need an Alka-Seltzer and to throw up on the side of the road.
Yeah, I went to a really good restaurant in Atlantic City this weekend.
As an example, baseball players only chew the sunflower seeds because it gives them something to do. I don't even think they like them. Yeah, sunflower seeds are like a waste. I don't even know why anybody.
Wasn't there a pitcher that had to go on the DL because he cut his finger on a sunflower seed?
They are. I mean, the best nut is a pistachio. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
I think the cashew's better, but I like pistachio a lot too.
But pistachios that you have to shell, because it's funny. Like, you would think it would be nice, but it's the kind of thing you shouldn't eat them as quickly as you can eat them if you don't shell them. So there's
at my grandfather's house in the old days, you used to get pistachios, but they were always dyed red, so you'd always get the red dye on your hands when you opened them up.
Remember those?
You get stuck your fingers in cherry Kool-Aid or something.
Yeah,
it's good evidence to say you've been dipping in my stash again.
Yeah, I think that was the way they could catch you back then.
Cancer in the finger, red dye number 5. There.
I know we're on the air, Russ, but how was the John Anderson thing?
It was really good. I haven't put up the review yet. I will tell you this: he's got a really diverse band. He's got, I want to say, 8-piece band.
Okay.
There were 2 drummers. There was a guy. And I don't know his name because I haven't researched him yet. There was a guy who was playing like the oboe, the bass sax, and the flute, and he was the star of the band. They had a violinist. They had
Ian Anderson,
a guitarist, a bassist. It was pretty amazing. Anderson, I got to tell you, I played something from the Union tour on the way back with the guy that I went to show with.
Yeah.
And we were playing All Good People, and I said, really, what is the difference with what you're hearing for this and what you heard tonight? And he goes, it's like nothing. Now, I'll tell you that he doesn't play On You and I anymore as much, and he doesn't play Heart of the Sunrise because those are really taxing songs. And I get that. But for the songs he does, his voice is still incredible. Like, it's really
the 2 favorite John Anderson-ish things that I would have loved to have heard. I didn't know anything about the concert. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Soon. Soon's a great song.
Yeah, actually, all right, so I'm going to be a spoiler alert here, but since you brought it up, I'll tell you, Soon was actually the last song he played, and it was great.
I would have loved that. And then there is this slow section on, I think it's side 3 of Tales of Topographic.
Oh God, I'm not a big Tales guy.
There's an incredible, like, there's a section of of one of those. I'll send it to you. It's this because I cut it out for myself one time just to have like that song of it. That's just like one of the most beautiful things ever.
I mean, there's only 4 songs, right, on Tales.
Right, but there's like there's definitely there's
one song per side.
There's a section. It's I think it's the third side, which starts off really like
I want
avant-garde.
to say like revealing science of the God, but I'm not 100%.
They're not songs.
Okay.
It sounds.
And then the other thing that is a really underrated song that did he do this because it's one of the best songs ever written.
No, Heck, I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of Ritual. You're thinking there's a
yeah.
You're thinking of Ritual. I like Ritual. The rest of them are okay.
I think it's part of Ritual.
Yeah.
But and then one of the most beautiful songs ever written, that totally goes unnoticed is "The Meeting" from Anderson, River, Wakeman, and Howe.
That's a really great song. Actually, there's a lot of good songs, but that's a really good song.
Did he do that? Meeting? The Meeting?
Yeah.
He did The Meeting?
No.
Well, everybody in the comments, please send us your comments on your favorite sunflower seed so you can ring X off the hook.
Well, basically, he played.
Yes, every comment that you make comes right to me directly.
He played Yes Music. He played about 5 songs off the new album, which are really good. He played one song off of like the Elias album, his first solo album. He played.
Did he do Friends of Mr. Cairo?
Yeah, he didn't play Mr. Cairo. He played State of Independence. And then, and they played America, because they covered that as Yes.
Yeah.
Back in the day from Simon. So that was really good too. It's a really good show. I think it's a very underrated show. Yeah, no.
So the last thing I'll say, what is the most messed up thing about because it was on the Ocean City Boardwalk, right?
No, this was in Staten Island, but they're due to play in Ocean City.
Oh yeah, they're playing in Ocean City. I guess maybe even what's today's date?
It's the next week. It's in the next week.
Might be tonight.
Anyway,
let's move on.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Ready? I think it's tonight. Actually, I think it's August 29th.
July
29th. Yeah, thanks. That would be good.
August.
I'm not ready for August to go away yet, so let's keep here. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, July 29th, 2019.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Anthony Mingione from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. One of those goings would be Anthony, who just left. Anyway, moving back, we have
news before you get on a roll.
Go ahead.
This is really interesting. I got this email this morning. I get briefed on the KHL all the time now. I'm not 100% sure why, but I do. Eck, don't bristle. I know you worry about every time we mention the KHL, but they are starting up a women's league. I had never heard about this. I didn't know if you guys had heard about it.
I think it's called the KWHL.
No, I don't know if it is or not, but
I think so.
Yeah, okay, because they're just calling it a women's league, and so I don't really know what the name of it is. But here's what they sent this morning. It was really interesting. So they always send like what's going on in the league, and one of the things was the setup for next season's women's hockey league was confirmed, and there's an exciting new arrival. The Coonan Red Star Vanke Rays have joined the league after the collapse of the Canadian Women's Hockey League over the summer. That's exactly the way it read. And so I think this is an amazing thing because if you think about it, in Olympic play, the Russian women have sort of lagged behind a lot of the other countries. And I think they have finally put the resources to women's hockey so they could do better in the Olympics because one of the things they mentioned was the winter game. So clearly they are sparking this league so they can improve their hockey team and for the upcoming Olympics. And I think this is a great thing.
I really hope so. I mean, when you think about it, the issue is in Russia is money, obviously, and getting girls to play, and whether or not, old fogies are going to let their children, let their little girls play hockey or not, or going to be able to afford it is the big issue. I think that's when you end up, in a situation because it's such expensive thing. But obviously there's, if they're really good players will be taken over and the Russians will put them in a special area and train them and all that stuff. And they won't be have to pay to play, but I think that this is a wonderful thing. Hopefully for women's hockey everywhere. And hopefully, we obviously need more good women's hocky teams.
We do
at the Olympics, especially just to keep it as an Olympic sport because every year it gets pushed and maybe might not be in the next Olympics. Like I heard that in Vancouver, this might be the last time.
Oh, wow.
Every year and I've talked to Kevin Allen about it, and Kevin's like, yeah, people don't know how close it is to being eliminated from the Olympics all the time. So
right, because it's only 2 teams.
No, Finland Finland has a decent
Yeah, but
team.
you know what I'm saying. It's Canada in the U. It's always going to be Canada and the U.S.
Invariably in the past, it's been Nora Ratty stopping like 68 shots
Exactly.
from the U.S. or Canadian team to make it competitive. So
That's true.
Yeah. That's exactly it. It's going to be some kind of goalie performance. It's going to be the only thing that holds somebody in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. So we have a signing today, a big one too, and an interesting one in a lot of levels. We have a couple signings, I think, but the first one that we want to start off with is Vasilevsky, who signs in Tampa, which basically, like I wrote in my blog today, assures that whenever for those teams always do the Florida trip, you're going to have to deal with for the next 7 years Bobrovsky and Vasilevsky on the tour. Yeah. Pretty significant. That's like that Florida trip is something that teams they look forward to because often if they can get a couple days off in the middle, they'll let the players like golf or do whatever and
go out on a boat and fish.
Yeah, they got that kind of thing, which I think definitely hurts. I mean, it doesn't.
And usually, that's when they like. I know that the Leafs. That's when they have their father's trip or their mother.
Right.
Is on Florida.
Right. You get the parents traveling around. That's for sure. So, so this is interesting though. But this is a really big. I mean, it's a big number, but it's not as big as as it could have been.
Well, it's not as big because of the Florida tax situation. Tampa benefits it, and that was. But I think in terms of real money compared to, now Carey Price is at 10.5, and you've got Bobrovsky at 10. So now Vasilevsky, in terms of money, is third, but probably in terms of what he takes home because of Florida taxes is probably as much as Price.
I'm a little surprised that it's less than Bobrovsky. I want to throw that out there. I think.
Yeah, you know what it is. I really like Vasilevsky, as you know. I was sold on him 4 or 5 years ago, but I still think the AAV is a little high, especially since he does save on the tax. Because it's an 8-year deal, boy, I know the tendency is to get a higher AAV too because you're keeping them locked up. But this is goaltending we're talking about, and it's a little bit more of an iffy business than anything else in the NHL. I'm surprised they went 9.5 because especially with their cap problems, because now they have been kicking the cap can down the road for 2 off seasons now with not many upgrades and not many downgrades. And this is the last year they're going to be able to do this.
Yeah. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to. Russ really just took the words right out of my mouth in that. In terms of that's they've pushed as Russ said, they've pushed things down the road. They are very much, especially after what happened last playoffs.
Yeah,
this gets that feeling of being sort of this is really their all-in year, like the final window where they could put this specific roster together and get another shot at it before they have to really begin to make harder decisions. That doesn't mean the window's completely closed. Would be completely closed after this year, but I think with the iteration of the roster as we see it, giving last year's roster, which did tremendously well in the regular season, another chance to potentially, make up for obviously what happened.
Well, the moves that we thought they were going to have to make this year are going to have to be made next year because, this year they traded JT Miller. They cleared $5.5 million in cap space so they could sign Point, and they'll probably get that done. Vasilevsky, this cap hit doesn't start until after next season. So he's under contract at 3.5, I believe, and then it's going to be 9.5. So I think next year you're going to see one of the Palots or Killorns or Tyler Johnson being moved out because they simply have to. And then you have to worry about like a guy like Anthony Cirelli who comes up, I think, the year after in terms of signing him to a deal. Now, I don't know, he probably won't be as expensive, obviously, unless he has an unbelievable performance this year. But people, and this is the thing I think is interesting. Everybody is saying like the Maple Leaf situation once they sign Marner is untenable. Look at Tampa now. You've got Stamkos at 8.5, Kucherov at 9.5, Vasilevsky at 9.5, probably Braden Point in anywhere from 8.5 to 9, and then Victor Hedman over 7. That's 5 players. 5. The Leafs have probably 3 making over 10. It's almost the same thing. It's you're going to have, and this is going to be the dynamic with most of these teams that weren't lucky enough to get some of their players like Boston locked up at 6 or 6.5 for a number of years. You're going to have teams with 3 or 4 players making above 8, maybe up to 10, or maybe even above 10, and then no middle class and everybody in either 3 or below. That's the reality of what the NHL is going to be.
Yeah.
and they're really pushing it. Like that's if they don't win the cup this year, they are going to start to have to do that each and every season.
Right.
And it's definitely going to hurt their competitiveness.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I'm sorry. I just got a text from somebody.
Okay.
It's similar. It's similar.
Continue.
It's similar, Russ, to like what Chicago had to do after they won their cups. They knew the bill was coming due. So after the first one, they moved out Buffalo, they moved out Versteeg. After the second one, they moved out a few more players. I mean, you're almost constantly rebooting because you have to. Because Stamkos and Kucherov, those guys are under contract for 5, 6, 7 years. Hedman the same, and you want that because they're great players. But at a certain point, you reach a saturation point.
At 2 more years, I mean, Stamkos may be the guy that gets moved out. I mean, that could be the reality.
As much as they, of course, promoted the team with Stamkos in mind, and he's in many ways the public face of the team. They're going to have to make some hard. They are going to make some hard decisions in this case. And again, as Mike mentioned, it's tough to really be good when you're that top heavy. In terms of because as much as those type of players like the Kucherovs or the drink offensively, you gotta in order to be competitive for a cup, you have to have depth.
And even the teams that have been fortunate, I mentioned the Bruins, teams that have been fortunate enough to get their key core players locked up on long-term deals that are very favorable based on what other players are being paid. Bergeron is under 7. Marchand is at 6.1. You've got Pasternak at 6.6. So you've got your three that number one line making less than $20 million, where at other teams that's 2 players. But they're gonna, it's gonna happen to them too, because a guy like Charlie McAvoy, if they try to get him locked up on a long-term contract, which I'm sure they're trying to, he's going to be the highest paid player on the team. He's going to make $8 million because if you're going to eat in, and that's the one thing about Vasilevsky's deal. They bought in 6 years of unrestricted free agency. He had a 2-year bridge. This is the last year of a 2-year bridge. He was 2 more years arbitration eligible until becoming a UFA. So with an 8-year deal, they bought 6 unrestricted years. That's why they ended up paying him 9.5.
Yeah, no, they really did, and I mean, this is obviously a case of he could have gotten more if he went someplace else, definitely. But why would you when you're in there on the team that just set an incredible record? You're living in Tampa, you're that Tampa area, which is just phenomenal.
He's going to be contending for a Stanley Cup for at least the first half of that contract.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how much more you get either. I mean, maybe a little, maybe
not a lot more, but a little bit. I mean, but what I've heard, the big thing about this was very much tied to Braden Point's deal, because they wanted to make sure that they had this done before that,
Right.
And so having this done now, and then
and this doesn't affect their available cap space for this year.
Doesn't affect their cap space for this year, exactly. But it does, obviously those are both long-term deals they have to put together, right? So, for 1 year it's not going to matter, but after that they will. And it also, I think, matters to a lot of the players like Braden Point and stuff like that Vasilevsky is signed. I mean, they don't really have a whole lot else going on besides Vasilevsky. So it's like if they don't get him signed, that definitely puts things into a weird spot. Not that it was ever questioned that he was going to sign there. It was very much assumed he was going to sign there. But Braden Point signing could actually help with some other things too. And that could help open up some stuff this summer for us, which is as far as, Tkachuk goes. I think I've definitely talking to people, and I've talked to Calgary a lot over the last week or so about Tkachuk, different people out there. And, guys like Eric Duhatschek, and who are saying, that Tkachuk's, they're not even close, but that Braden Point could be a guy that they really look to for Tkachuk.
It's funny that they've moved off the narrative that everybody was waiting for Marner.
Right.
Because they know Marner is a unique situation, and now with the deal that the Leafs made next week, this could go into the season, because now they're prepared, even if it goes into the season, to be able to match an offer sheet or sign him at that point. So nobody's going to wait around for Marner. It's moved to Point, it's moved to Rantanen, and maybe Tkachuk and a couple others sort of fall behind those guys. And I don't understand why Rantanen isn't signed right now. They have Colorado has tons of cap space.
Again, it's like they're probably structuring bonuses, and they're trying to think if there's going to be a lockout, and all these contracts. These are all the really complicated ones.
Now,
And the Marner thing, I mean, the one thing I'll say about it that I've been talking about for a couple of weeks now, and it's coming to fruition now, is that the Leafs have told them flat out, that we'll give you till the end of July to figure out what's going on. If they're going to do an offer sheet,
Well,
or if they're going to, and we can, for what it's worth. I mean, I'm not saying it could just be words, it could just be threats, it could just be idle threats, but it's out there that the Leafs are going to have to consider options if this goes into August.
Well,
they're not willing to go into the season.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Ideally, they want to get it done before training camp, but they have given themselves an out in terms of flexibility with this deal act because
they haven't given themselves an out in terms of their team. Like their team,
well,
if they don't get Marner signed, and they have to make sure that happens. So that's like the big issue they've got. So
Steve Simmons wrote on the weekend that his belief is that Marner will end up signing right at the beginning of the regular season, because once they put Nathan Horton, Clarkson, and the two other players on LTIR, it opens up $13 million in cap space. Right. And they have flexibility before then, but I think Darren Ferris, who has a habit with some of his other players, Athanasiou was one of them, where he went into the season and pressed it to the complete end before they finally succumbed. He's probably going to play that playbook out completely. And I don't get the feeling that the Leafs are going to say, okay, here's your internal deadline of August 15th. If you pass that, we're going to trade your ass.
No, they're not saying we're going to trade your ass. They're just saying that we are going to have to explore every option. And it is just words, but at the same time, it feels a little bit different with the Leafs situation based on everything that they went through to get the cap space for Marner, to get it set up, and all the different kinds of offer sheet threats. I mean, remember, this is like people are saying, no, the Leafs are threatening the agents. Well, the offer sheet threats didn't come out of nowhere. The agents were threatening the Leafs to a degree there too.
Right.
So,
but the problem is you have to have two to tango here, and it's like when the player clearly wants to stay in Toronto and the Leafs are offering him what is deemed respectable offers, there's not going to be an offer sheet, because no team is going to say we're going to help out the Leafs by putting out an offer sheet that they're just going to match. Why would they do it?
Well, I want to just and that's what I want to discuss for a second. Why would they do that? Well, because they don't. At the end of the day, there's so many different elements to that question. First of all, remember the basic simple fact here that offer sheets are, they're really hard to put together. They're expensive to put together. Actually, right. They actually, I think the Flyers spent like close to $100,000 on the Shea Weber offer sheet legally for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I was told that that's just money that you make an offer sheet. When you make an offer sheet, you can bet it's going to cost you close to $100,000, which is kind of nuts.
Pay me 50. Pay me. I'll do it for 50.
Yeah, right. But it's kind of nuts, but that is the case, and that's money you don't get back. Not that that's
feel really, and to spend that, to put that kind of outlay for you. They had, again, we know Philly felt pretty confident.
Yeah,
that they
right.
They were confident,
which plays into offer sheets is one of the reasons that they don't happen, because they're legally complicated, and and there's a lot to them, and because an offer sheet is the last contract that player is going to sign, so that player's agent, when they're negotiating that contract, is going to go back and forth legally on every possible little element of things, because they know that. They know that that's either going to be his contract with the Flyers or the contract with the Predators.
It's ironic that you say that, because in Marner's instance, it wouldn't be, because that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get a shorter deal
trying to, but obviously, yeah, you're right. And that's and the Leafs are not happy about that. So they don't want to do that. They want to do a longer deal because they want to be in the same boat, right? Although, at the end of the day, it probably will be a shorter deal.
I think it's going to end up being a 2 or 3 year bridge deal. It's just going to be a question of how much.
Oh, I really hope so, because that'd be great for Hockey Buzz business, because then we'd be back and talking about this again in 2 years.
Well, let me.
No, but let me finish my thought for 1 second on this, because it does go to the bigger kind of point that I want to talk about today, and then we're going to get into the Rangers as well.
Yeah, good.
But the dysfunctional thing that is the NHL offer sheet, the way it plays out in this situation with all these players, like the concept of, okay. And I want to throw like Russ and I love to throw these things into like dating scenarios. Okay, so there's a girl I really like. There's a girl I really like, and she really likes me, but she's not sure if she wants to date. But she doesn't want to date me based on my conditions, which of course that or that we do nothing at all and just watch TV all the time. Okay, so that's my condition, right? I need that. So she's not going to date me based on that. But if some other girl is going to offer,
that's exciting.
Right, exactly. I'm a thrill a minute. So if some other girl is going to offer me that same opportunity to date her with just watching TV and drinking iced tea constantly, then that girl that I'm talking about, the first girl, she's perfectly willing to do it, but not until another girl tells me that she's willing to do that, right? And so one of my friends goes to that other girl and says, "Hey, you know what? I'll give you $100 to like say you're going to do that." And then they say, "Okay, sure." So then I get what I want with this other girl, and that's going to lead to a fantastic relationship because she's been forced into something that she doesn't want to do. But let's just throw that out there.
Down this road.
Can I pause for a second?
Yeah, I'm trying to see how long I can take a metaphor, but go ahead, Anthony.
This is what we now refer to as the iced tea versus hot coffee offer comparison.
Exactly. So you see what I'm saying here? That this is like all so crazy dysfunctional, right? Like this is like the concept of like, oh, we're just going to match the offer sheet versus we're never signing with you now, which is happening. I'm never going to sign you based on terms. But just match it if someone else gives you those terms is really messed up, and it leads to not just like deals that teams don't want to do or do want to do, I guess, because when they're bad deals like Carolina, they're like, yeah, that's thrilled. We're thrilled now. We got to IHO for that. But in most cases, it's going to lead to just like a resentful situation forever in Toronto with Marner and the Leafs, or will it be just like, oh no, whatever, that's what we had to do? And so
I actually think there's more resentment towards Nylander than there will be towards Marner.
Well, because he's better, yeah, and that's probably why. But, at the end of the day, I mean, it's really not like
because they had to wait.
It's easier to have less resentment towards that beautiful woman versus that woman there. So yeah, I get the point of this, like that. It's just.
I mean, I think what the Leafs are trying to do is not to make, and Dubas even said this in April. They're trying not to make the same mistakes that they made with Nylander. With Marner,
but how can they not make the same? Like they can say that. What mistakes did they make that they aren't just the fact that Marner's just better?
They were not proactive. They
were they not though? I mean, did they really not? Just sit around and not do anything, or were they just?
No, they didn't. They really didn't press Louis Gross and the Nylander camp until it got like really close to camp, and that's what Dubas said. He says, we were trying to establish contact, and
again comes back to the fact that Marner's just better. I mean, it's if they didn't press Nylander because they didn't feel like they had to press him.
Of course, he's better, but that's not the point here. The point is that they allowed the agent to control the situation, to control the narrative, and then it bled into the preseason, and then it bled into the regular season, and it infected that team. And then when he had actually, they were playing great when he got there, and when they started turning in December and January, and they started to struggle. What was the common thread? The common thread was Nylander was back, so he must be to blame, and he probably wasn't, but that was the perception. And honestly, if Marner struggles after holding out through training camp and into the regular season, and the same thing happens again, that's the one thing that he doesn't want. He wants to sell his wares in Toronto. He wants to be a spokesman. He wants to, be an advertising guy as well as a star hockey player. I don't think Nylander is getting many commercials.
Yeah. Eventually, Marner will eventually look like he's in his 20s, and it'll be okay. He's like,
that's an easy narrative to sell. But his camp isn't thinking like that, Mike. No, they're not.
And this all has to do with how
they are. But I think they are, Russ. But I think they're going to press it to the 11th hour before they. And not to say that they're going to succumb, but I think they're going to push it to the very limit, like Simmons said in his column. They're going to push it to October 2nd. They're going to, But if I would be shocked if he misses more than a week of the season.
If he misses into the preseason. I'd be shocked, honestly, because this to me they can't let this happen again, and it's not even a matter of whether or not letting it happen again. It's just like they can't.
How do you? Because the only way you prevent it from the Leaf point of view is to friggin' succumb. Is to give him everything he wants. And they're not going to do that.
Not everything he wants, but like actually negotiate is what I'm saying. There's no negotiation going on at all.
Oh, come on.
Here's what I say.
They're not lowballing Marner. There's no way.
No, they're not lowballing him. They're not balling. They're not. They're not doing
him either. Apparently,
they're not.
Well,
there's our show title. No. they're not doing anything. That's my point. They're really sitting back and not doing anything. Okay, they are waiting for something else to happen. Okay, that's what they're doing. So that is what the girl I am dating is not dating anybody else. She doesn't want to sit there and watch Mythbusters and drink iced tea all day long, but instead she's like just not doing anything. She's not offering me just, okay, maybe we'll watch a couple shows.
If we watch Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, I'll sign with you.
Right. Or like she wants to watch Bachelorette in Paradise. Okay. So I'm like, that's right. So I'm like,
Russ, go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's not Mythbusters anymore. It's Savage Build. But anyhow,
it's a fantastic show.
That's a good show. But the key here is, if I'm the Leafs, I say, if you're missing even one preseason game, then we're done negotiating and you could sit out the season. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think
franchise, I'm not going through that again for any player.
Yeah, but that would be a way that some owners would go, but that is a bit of a nuclear option, right? So they are in that spot, right? So that's a way that some, old school owners would go for sure. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that we'd see that nowadays. And because, it is a business and all this stuff. Yeah, we get it done. But you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is not doing any good for all the issues that are actually happening with the Toronto Maple Leafs beyond Mitch Marner. Like, this is not helping anything. They've got a lot to deal with. They've got a lot they got to fix. They've got a defense that they've got to introduce to their goalie. They've got a lot of things happening that
I think the main thing they need to accomplish with getting Marner locked up is to have some idea of cost certainty going forward. Because once you get him signed, once you know how much Marner, Tavares, and Matthews are in terms of 30, 31, 32 million total of those three, then you have to work around that, because you need to surround a team, need to surround them with a team that's capable of winning. And the next, but
they've already done that.
No.
That's why it's not a mystery that $13 million is existing out there.
They've got 3 unrestricted free agents next summer.
No, I know that. But for this year, the salary space that exists is is 11 to 13 million. However you want to look at it, like, so that's
right. And that's why I think that
they already put the price in there. They've already set the price. That money is not going to sit out there and do nothing.
Well, that's why I think it's going to get done. I mean, that's why I think it's just a matter of when.
It's why it should get done, but it's not getting. And my point is, that's my point. It's like we know that you guys and you just say you can't let the agents have all the power. That's a great thing to say.
Well,
but the agents do have all the power. The reality is they
don't. I mean,
they have enough power in this situation.
If Ferris cannot get, and we can end this because we can talk about Marner.
I want everybody to say that we're talking about the Leafs, but this applies to all the guys out there right now who are doing the same. But it's Provorov, Kachuk, name it, just go through the whole line. They're all doing the same thing.
If Ferris can't get an offer sheet from a team that meets the criteria that they want, which is shorter term, 4 or 5 years, so he can turn free agent again at 26 or 27 and hit the jackpot once again, then they're not signing an offer sheet, and no team in their right mind is offering it. None. If they want the player, they want him for as long as possible. They want him for 6 or 7 years. And if they can't get him at that, then they're not going to risk 4 first-round picks. That's why this offer sheet bull crap is not happening.
Here's what I would like to see. Say the agent. I don't know who represents. I can't remember who represents Gardner right now.
Pat Brisson.
Okay, Pat Brisson. Say Pat Brisson represented both Gardner and Marner. Right. This is the perfect situation for him to go to the Montreal Canadiens and say, okay, he'll give you Gardner for $1 million less a year. Just offer sheet Marner.
Yeah,
I can that to me. Just throw the offer sheet out there for Marner. Their Leafs are going to match, but just this way,
And do you think Jake Gardner would be happy with his agent saying, "I'll give you"?
Jake Gardner would never know. This, I'm not saying that this is, and I'm not saying that collusion has never happened or does happen. Or I mean, obviously it's collusion, but I can't help but think these things happen.
Well,
from talking to people. Just from talking to people that they'll never admit to it, but they'll be like, okay.
I've never heard of it happening, so I have no idea.
Let me ask Russ and
why wouldn't it though
about this, because I thought that the announcement of the Buchnevich signing was interesting, because right after Russ, then all this talk about the window for buyout, the secondary window for arbitration. I think it expires on Wednesday.
Right.
The name I thought I was going to hear was Brendan Smith, but there's been a lot of Shattenkirk talk.
Well, I think that's what Larry Brooks is writing. I don't think it's a smart move for two reasons. Okay. The first one is, why in the world do you want to take a $6 million cap hit for doing this? Because some team will take Kevin Shattenkirk the minute you cut him. They will. So that's the reality. The other thing is, Larry Brooks has penciled in Lieber Hodgick as one of the Rangers defensemen. He's played 5 NHL games in his career. I don't know if Lieber Hodgick is ready. It's another reason to keep Shattenkirk. What if Trouba is not looking great at a camp and has to settle in? It's another reason to keep Shattenkirk. There's no reason to get rid of Shattenkirk right now. He's not costing you a lot. Brendan Smith can't do anything at the NHL level. And if you buy him out, it's like 1.14 for the next 4 years, and you have to pay $1 million signing bonus. But he's a $4 million contract that you're saving $3 million on. To me, that's a much smarter move. And then, yes, if you have to trade Nemestikov to sign Kreider, then that's what you do. And if you can't do that at the beginning of the year, you tell Kreider, hang loose until January. We'll have it done by then. And I'm sure they will. And that's how they'll work it out. Kreider still got his contract for this year, so it's not like they have to sign him right now. And he's probably amenable to staying with this team because they're going to be a good team. But I really think Brendan Smith is the guy to buy out. Now, the other interesting one is Brooks was saying because all these right side guys are there, D'Angelo, and we talked about it, Trouba and everything, that Stahl is there for this year because he's playing the left side. That's fine, right? But come next year, I think it's still bury Mark Stahl in the minors if he's not doing well, and you could at least save some money. And so
or retain salary and trade him.
Or retain salary and trade him, which is a good possibility. That, to me, is still another option for next year rather than going into next year hoping to contend and having to eat $6 million on your cap. That doesn't seem smart.
Anthony, I mean, to me, it's like it's clear. I mean, if I'm choosing the least effective of these big money defensemen on the Rangers to buy out, it's Brendan Smith every day, including Sunday. Yeah. I don't know how you buy out Shattenkirk.
I understand some of the logic, as Russ said. I can understand some of the logic behind Brooks saying Shattenkirk, but I would agree in this case that Brendan Smith, in terms of if you're looking to have an effective deployment defensively going into the season and being able to really being kind of on board, having your defense on board, and we all know how good defensively Kevin Shattenkirk is. We'll leave that at that, but you know. But I would think it would probably Smith would be the smarter play.
Now, and the thing is, though, with Shattenkirk, it's not one of these contracts that is buyout proof with heavy signing bonus. It's $6.6 million cap hit for this year, 6.65, 6.6 real salary, no bonus. The next year it goes down to $4 million, $2 million signing bonus, $2 million base salary. So you're talking about double the amount of years. They're talking about a $1.5 million, I believe it's $1.5 million cap hit for 4 years. I think Smith is the same length of contract, and it's not as much. So I would buy out Smith.
Yeah, 1.14.
I want to go real quick to Anthony on one other question because Anthony's got to go. But that would be so Farabee is having a really good apparently scored 2 goals in the junior showcase yesterday. Yeah. And then, I was talking to a lot of people who got to see the camps. I was not at the camp or at the rookie camps, but the Farabee Morgan Frost debate seems to be like something that's heating up. Like, who is going to be the guy that's going to stay? And that Farabee is making a lot of grounds. And
if either,
could be either. You think?
I think it's an if either make the or on the roster. If we're referring to the Flyers roster, it could be an if either. But if we're saying it's between the two, I would probably angle more towards Frost in this case because I think there's some versatility there.
And he's a year older.
As a year older, a little more physically developed. I think Farabee has to have a really, really strong camp and preseason for him to be on the Flyer roster. I think it's a possibility that he's going to be there.
Yeah.
But I think in the general structure of things right now, I think they would probably, if it's between the two and all things are equal and both have a good preseason, Frost, I think, will probably be the one that would probably stay.
Now, they are similar players, but not really, right? Or how would you?
Versatility involved here, because I think Frost did a little bit of wing, played a little bit of wing during the developmental camp when we were there.
Mm-hmm.
We asked him about playing the wing and versus center, and that's something that's going to be valuable, I think, for Philadelphia in terms of the ability to be able to potentially swing. I think if he makes the roster, probably is that wing, if all things being equal. But you could very well see Scott Lawton as a strong camp. Maybe he ends up in that right wing role in the third line. That's another possibility there. But if you're asking if the chips are down and they have to choose between at the moment without any additional data from preseason yet, I would probably lean towards Frost over Farabee.
And Frost,
people don't know the difference necessarily, but I mean, Frost is more of an all-around, like from how it's been described to me and how what I've seen. And I haven't seen these guys play as much as you guys have. Frost is more of like an all-around, like Konechny type player, but Farabee's more of a scorer. Is that true? Or
both are playmakers first in this case. I think in this circumstance, Farabee continuously working on obviously his scoring in this case, but the mindset of both players I think are more in the playmaker area. But Farabee absolutely can rifle it, and if he has give him if he rips it up in preseason, that's going to be a goal scoring wise. That definitely puts him on the radar.
I remember Frost was, I think, arguably Team Canada's best player at the World Junior, and he played on the wing for most of that tournament.
When he played, he didn't play very much. I mean, it was
right. They didn't play him enough.
Didn't play him enough, but he played. But he was very noticeable in the time.
Cool.
I'll tell you this.
Thanks, Anthony. We'll let you go. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Take care. After seeing Farabee in the Bean Pot, which is a really good tournament, my takeaway was he was one of the few guys on the team that was doing everything right, like without the puck, with the puck, in scoring position, really like on 3 big occasions for them. Definitely got an assist that game, but could have had a goal or two. It's one of those things where right now he has more pushback than Morgan Frost does. And he's used to that because of the college game. And so that's something where Frost is probably a little behind on. Frost is the higher skill guy, but Farabee may have the better shot, but it doesn't matter. We're just picking at that point.
I mean, but it's the funny thing about better shots I've noticed, and I'm sure you know this more than I do, even at prospects, is like it is sometimes really difficult to determine how a shot is going to translate into the NHL game. Like some shots just become like some guys who have like great shots and just can't miss in juniors. Their shot doesn't trick NHL goalies for some reason.
Right. Farabee has the better shot. There's no question in my mind. I've seen both guys play a lot, but like Frost in transition is better. Frost is more creative, but Farabee definitely has the better shot. And I do think he'll fool NHL goalies because he was fooling college goalies and that's not that far off, you know?
Yeah.
So, but again, I don't know if either is making the team. I think people are jumping the gun because right now, and we'll start to see some games pop up on the NHL Network soon. But these are scrimmage games too. So this is, the thing about the summer, about this tournament, right, is this is like your first games back. Players are just getting back after being off for a while. Yeah. This is like World Junior stuff. So they're looking at guys.
Right.
It still doesn't even fully determine if a guy's making the World Junior team because we've seen that next camp is really more important anyhow, but this is the one that gets you on the radar, right?
Just as an example, last year, Rasmus Sandin, the Leafs' first-round pick, didn't play in the summer series.
Correct.
And then in the World Junior, he was the number 2 defenseman on Sweden after Bransford.
Yeah. So that's a great example, Mike. It is.
Yeah.
And so I think people are getting a little carried away with this, knowing that the Flyers have a possible opening. But, like I said, I think right now, Farabee is an easier guy to slot in at the pro level than Frost is. I just do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm talking to people at the Flyers. It felt like that they at least believed in these guys enough and that is why their shift has been picking up defensive help and not wingers, right? Not like
I think, to be fair, that's a great company line to take when you're out of money.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. But I mean, I'll give you that. But I think there's definitely when people think about the Flyers prospect pool, they've for years have been thinking about defense, right? That's where it is.
I mean,
and the biggest issue about bringing in a guy like Niskanen or Braun is you're taking a spot from a prospect. Like that's something that's like
they bought themselves time. That's what they did. Niskanen's got what, 2 years left?
Yeah.
Or 2 years left. Braun's got 1 more year left.
Right.
They also bought themselves insurance in case Provorov holds out. So that's what they did with these. It wasn't because I think there's something to Niskanen being a veteran guy who can be a good teacher and a good helper. Sort of like Ron Hainsey was with Toronto with some of their younger defensemen. But in the end, I think it's all about Provorov, and it's all about getting him under contract. And if they can't, having a viable defense to be able to stay competitive.
I'll tell you what the Braun thing smacks up to me, like that great former Flyers captain Jason Smith. It'll be like a similar run.
Exactly. Or Luke Richardson, I thought.
Isn't it the same thing?
Like Richardson or Smith. Like Luke Richardson, too, did the same thing. Came in at the end of his career when he was like pretty much done, but brought in like this great attitude that they needed. Yeah. I think that's what they did with Braun. Braun is going to be a problem for San Jose. Like that, losing Braun is a bigger.
It's a problem for him.
It's a bigger issue, I think, for San Jose than it is a plus for the Flyers.
Well, when the trade was made, it was basically we have to sign one of either him or Brendan Dillon, and they decided they were going to focus on signing Dillon. That they thought he had more in the tank or
younger.
He's younger, but on defense, you need character. Like you really do. And I think that the Flyers made the right, I've been talking to everybody at the beach. Like I was at the beach this weekend, and everybody who knows what I do down there will come up to me and say, "Oh, what the heck are the Flyers doing?" And it's like, and I spent a lot of time trying to like defend these moves or say, I don't, or not defend them on the moves.
You having to do that. That's funny.
No, it's fine, and I'm like, well, I'm not, we're all put in this spot. Like, I'm sure like people come up to Mike and like, why are the Leafs doing this? It's like, it's just like, and you sit there and I'm like, I can't really defend. I don't know if it's necessarily what I would have done, but this is the thing. This is why they're doing it. And I'll at least explain what their thinking is, like, I don't know whether or not that's the right thinking, but that's their thinking. And so a couple questions in the chat room before we get out of here today.
Okay.
That are pretty good. Okay. This one I liked. There we go back here. Okay, so this is from Esmir, who says, what do you think about the comments from the Devils owner saying Shiro is wheeling and dealing behind the scenes?
I think that Josh Harris likes to believe that. I don't believe that.
Sounds like something when your season ticket staff is calling people.
Yes.
Yeah.
That feels a little bit of that to me.
I think drafted Jeff Hughes. They got Wayne Simmons. They traded for PK Subban.
Yeah.
That was their dealing.
I think they really shouldn't do much more, honestly. Like they do a lot more.
I think the wheeling and dealing behind the scenes was to find the Ric Flair robe that PK Subban wore in that press event they had last week.
Yeah.
It was tough to find that somewhere. They probably had to call Rick himself and find out where he gets his robes from.
No, Rick just thanked them for the respect. He didn't have anything to do with it. I saw.
All right, so we got two, and I think, I'm not saying the Devils don't have something up their sleeve or something else to do, but maybe the wheeling and dealing is maybe the wheeling and dealing has more to do with Taylor Hall, or our thoughts like that Shiro is talking to Taylor Hall behind the scenes a little bit more than is being out there.
They have two prominent UFAs that they have to work on, I think, before the season starts, or then you're going to get into sort of, when are they going to get a traded rental type of situation? It's Hall and it's Sami Vatanen. And they're not deep on defense, and they still have to get Will Butcher signed. So, they got situations that they have to take care of, and they got a lot of cap space, so they should be able to take care of it. If the will is there for their ownership to actually spend money on the team.
No, I think the will is there. I just think Hall has to. I think Hall is going to wait and see what this team looks like before he decides that.
Right.
The Rangers just released this that Chris Knoblauch has been named their head coach of the AHL affiliate.
Okay.
Yeah, former Erie Otters head coach,
former Flyers power play coach.
Yeah, that's a good thing to put on your resume. All right. So
but he's the coach. Hold on. He's the coach. Like I covered a game at Erie, and I was pretty impressed with the guy.
No, I think he's a guy like him. Actually, he's met him a couple times. He's a good guy.
Think about the pro talent that has gone through Erie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's crazy. I mean, that's really where.
It's better than being a head coach somewhere.
I think the Erie thing goes above the Flyers coaching spot. Probably. on the resume.
Oh, yeah.
So Andrew Calamari was first ones to discuss my girlfriend theory, which is your girlfriend theory isn't bad, he says, but you forget that she is the hot girl and maybe she will take you up on the short deal so she can get the quarterback in 3 years for the prom. All right, well, Andrew.
I will tell you one thing about my girl theory that sort of works with X thing. It when you were and this worked out pretty much when you were in high school and maybe a little in college. Some girls didn't want to give you the time of day until you had a girlfriend, and then all of a sudden they would want to give you the time of day.
Very true. That's very true. It actually works both ways.
I wouldn't know.
It works both ways. It works that way with girls too. Like my daughter didn't date anybody for a while, and she was like, I'm never gonna date anybody. And then she dates one person, everybody wants to date her. It absolutely is the case that you see that. But I was the quarterback in high school, so there you have it. All right, so Andrew, I was.
No, I was not. I said.
No, I know you were a bowler. What were you? No, Mike was a bowler. Mike was a bowler. Yeah, you were a ball player, right? Of course.
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't on any school team. I just played a lot of intramural after school.
Hey, the Hutch Tech bowling team was.
No, I know Mike's pin pal bowling team.
More into music in high school than sports, but I still played a lot of sports outside of high school.
Oh yeah, there you go. All right, so Andrew asks. And then finally, we'll say this question: what team will be the surprise team of the year, like the Blues and the Islanders were of last year? This is a good question. We'll probably do a whole podcast on. Probably should, but this is definitely something that
because I think about this stuff all the time. I don't know if I consider them. I think the Rangers could be a big surprise.
They're definitely in that world. Yeah,
they could be in this. They could be in the surprise. I mean, is Florida a surprise at this point?
Yeah, I mean,
no.
Different things. Like, you look at the kind of surprises you're talking about with the Blues and the Islanders. Like the Blues
weren't a surprise. They got Ryan O'Reilly.
Right. I mean, they made a lot of moves, but they were surprised because they never succeed. Right. So that was the issue, was that they.
Well, yeah, all right.
People thought they don't have a goalie. So you could look at a team that never succeeds, and the Blues would be kind of similar to the Flyers in some ways. Like that would be like. Like the Flyers have talent. They have some players. They made some moves.
Is at the start of the season, there were high expectations for the Blues. Then they crapped out, and then the team came back to what everybody thought they were.
Exactly.
There's no high expectations for the Flyers.
All right, so let's pick another team that there's high expectations for, but that could crap out and eventually return. I'll say, how about Colorado? That's a team that could come in with Colorado. People are incredibly high on Colorado. Everyone is, but at the same time, and everybody thinks that they're going to win multiple Stanley Cups. Like when it's amazing the hoopla around Colorado.
I say this without our expert on the subject being here, but how about the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I think the Jets are a good one. And
then the Islanders are the team that everybody is discounting completely because of what happened, and that's definitely the Blue Jackets. Like the Blue Jackets to me are the Islanders.
Yes.
Of last year. Like that's the team that they lost the two players, they lost Tavares, they lost Panarin, that kind of thing. And
yet we can do a show on this.
I think Sports is gonna have Brandon Dubinsky fight everybody the first week to remind everybody that the Blue Jackets are still relevant. I think they're gonna do something like that.
He's their number one center. Oh no, sorry, number two.
Yeah, Dubois is their number one.
Yeah.
But I do think that they're gonna do something like that to sort of let everybody know they're relevant, because I do think you're right, Eck. I do think they've fallen out of relevancy just in, normal terms of what they used to be.
Yeah. And that's and then there's always the issue of teams that make it as surprise teams. And we'll talk about this later as well, because we'll get out here. But teams that make it as surprise teams like St. Louis and the Islanders having a tendency to fall apart after they.
All right. So here's one.
Edmonton.
Are we going to be surprised if the Bruins start off slow and have sort of a hangover because they didn't win the cup and they have older players that had to go on that whole run and come up short? Is anybody going to be surprised if they start off?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. The Bruins are, it'll all depend where I put them, because whenever I pick the Bruins to do well, they do horribly. When I pick the Bruins to do horribly, they do well. Like I picked them to miss the playoffs last year. And they went to the Stanley Cup. They went to Game 7.
I will never pick the Bruins to miss the playoffs. This current incarnation, never.
There is no reason to think that they couldn't miss the playoffs. I mean, they could miss the playoffs.
I mean, that division's getting tighter. So
they're saying, yeah, they are.
The only way they miss the playoffs is if they have massive, massive injuries. And the thing is, you remember during the middle of the year, Bergeron was out for a month. Chara was out for almost a month. And they survived it. They played over 500 hockey, and then they went on from there. And that rest
right. But
first
it's not
round.
going to happen every year because I think the injuries are going to happen every year. That's the
Right.
problem.
That's the case. Yeah, but
they lost some of their key like fourth line guys too. That also plays into that.
Yeah, they lost a few, or at least one Ochari. Right? These
Right.
guys,
They're not like they're not, and those players aren't usually viewed as big, but they're part of the whole.
They were important for Boston because.
Don't worry, Parr Lindholm will fill them up.
No, but I think it's a fair point to say that it's possible they start off slow because of older players, because of Chain, and because they went on this really long run and came up short.
And those fourth line guys, when they end up signing other places, like I'll use the Kings as an example, that does eventually affect the team.
It does.
It really does. It really eventually affects the Kings. It affected the Kings. It affected the Hawks too. Like both those teams that were affected by losing some of those like obscure players. That didn't make all the money, but just that were a big part of their team.
Remember, even by the end of the season, the Bruins' top line was tired. They weren't scoring like they could have been scoring.
Oh, you know who's this is the person in the chat room just brought this up perfectly. Toronto Greenhouse just brought it up. The team that is the Blues this year is the Dallas Stars.
Well, nobody's going to be as high on the Stars to start the season, but I think otherwise, I think that's fair.
No, I mean they made the Pavelski deal is the Ryan O'Reilly deal, right? They bring in the guy who's like who's a really star player, and they go out of their way to get and they were already good, but they were really bad the year before. They didn't make the playoffs, which is the Blues were in that situation. To me, this is that's a really good comparative. Like the Stars, because they have a lot of players that haven't played together for a bit. But at the end of the day, they've got all this crazy talent. Yeah, the Stars are a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, but the Stars, again, they're always going to be tied to the health of their goaltender.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But if he's healthy, he's great.
Right. I mean, with the Blues, it was the fact they didn't have a goaltender. With the Stars, it was the goaltender stays healthy.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. All right, guys, all the time we have for today. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.